is absolute.
Then we need the English engineers.
No! Take English and...
Lawrence of Arabia wasn't just an epic desert adventure, it was a near catastrophic production that nearly killed its star, bankrupted its studio, and pushed its director to the brink of madness. The film that swept the Academy Awards and redefined cinematic scope was plagued by sunstroke, political assassination threats, and a leading man who nearly died twice during filming. The pristine footage that captivated audiences worldwide was created through dust storms that destroyed equipment, temperatures exceeding 120 degrees, and a director who refused to leave the desert until he captured perfection. Get ready for 20 weird facts about Lawrence of Arabia that will forever change how you see this masterpiece. And stick around for the bonus fact, the shocking truth about the film's most iconic scene that was kept secret for over 50 years. Number 20. Peter O'Toole wasn't director David Lean's first choice to play T.E. Lawrence, not even close. Lean initially wanted Albert Finney, who actually completed a screen test in full costume and makeup. Columbia Pictures approved him for the role, but at the last minute, Finney balked at signing a multi-year contract with the studio. It wasn't just contract issues that concerned him. Finney feared the fame that would come with such a high-profile role would destroy his privacy forever. When Finney walked away, the production scrambled. Marlon Brando was approached but declined. Even Montgomery Clift was considered before O'Toole emerged as a possibility. The relatively unknown stage actor seized his opportunity, creating one of cinema's most memorable performances and launching himself to international stardom. The role Finney feared would consume his life instead transformed O'Toole's forever. Number 19. The famous Mirage scene where Omar Sharif first appears took 3 days to shoot for just 2 minutes of footage. What audiences didn't know was that the crew had to continually rake the desert floor between takes to remove their footprints. And the shimmering heat effect wasn't added in post-production. It was pure atmospheric distortion created by the brutal Jordanian desert heat that reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit during filming. Cinematographer Freddie Young placed the camera over a mile away from Sharif with a massive telephoto lens, capturing that legendary natural rippling effect as Sharif approached on camelback. The sequence wasn't just beautiful filmmaking, it was a brutal endurance test. Sharif later revealed he spent hours each day riding toward a camera he couldn't even see, trusting Lean's vision while suffering from dehydration and sunstroke. The result? Perhaps the most legendary character introduction in film history. Number 18. During the film's desert sequences, Peter O'Toole's camel riding resulted in serious, permanent physical damage. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was physically devastating. O'Toole hadn't been taught the proper technique for riding camels. Before production began, instead of using a traditional saddle, he rode directly on the wooden frame that typically supports one, causing severe chafing that led to him needing surgery. "I've torn something in my nether regions," O'Toole later recounted with characteristic dry wit. The damage was actually severe enough that he would require multiple medical procedures and was left with lasting pain. During particularly rough riding scenes, crew members would pour a mixture of surgical spirit and iodine on his wounds between takes. Despite bleeding through his costume, O'Toole refused to stop shooting. His dedication created authenticity in his performance. Lawrence, too, suffered tremendously while adapting to camel riding, but left O'Toole with lifelong pain. Hollywood legend has it that the actor later described the experience as riding a Winnebago with hemorrhoids. Number 17, Lawrence of Arabia filmed for 14 months across 3 continents, but didn't have a completed script when shooting began. Not even close. The production started with just a framework, while screenwriter Robert Bolt continued writing as filming progressed. This wasn't just unorthodox, it was filmmaking chaos. Actors would frequently receive new pages the night before shooting crucial scenes. Anthony Quinn, who played Oda Abutai, reportedly went to bed learning one version of a speech and woke up to find it completely rewritten. The situation deteriorated further when Bolt was arrested during an anti-nuclear demonstration in London, leaving the production without its writer. Producer Sam Spiegel had to personally bail Bolt out of jail and sequester him in a hotel room to finish the screenplay. David Lean would direct scenes in the morning while frantically revising dialogue over lunch breaks. What audiences saw as a meticulously crafted epic was actually being stitched together day by day in the desert heat. Number 16. The infamous scene where Lawrence extinguishes a match with his fingers wasn't in the original script at all. It was improvised on set by Peter O'Toole based on an actual trick he had learned in pubs. The famous line that follows, "The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts," right, crystallized Lawrence's character in seconds, revealing his masochistic tendencies and willingness to endure pain. What's more remarkable is that O'Toole performed this stunt repeatedly for multiple takes. By the final shot, his fingers were genuinely burned and blistered. When actor Arthur Seaton tried to replicate the trick between takes, he severely burned himself and required medical attention. Director David Lean was so captivated by the improvised moment that he restructured several subsequent scenes to further emphasize Lawrence's unusual relationship with pain. The match scene became so iconic that modern film scholars regularly cite it as one of cinema's most revealing character moments, all from an unplanned bit of improvisation. Number 15. The famous No Prisoners massacre sequence was based on an actual incident in T.E. Lawrence's autobiography, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, but historical evidence suggests Lawrence fabricated or greatly exaggerated the event. In reality, what audience members watched as a pivotal character moment may have been dramatizing something that never happened. The scene's filming became notoriously difficult. Peter O'Toole struggled with portraying Lawrence's transformation into a man capable of such violence. After multiple unsatisfactory takes, director David Lean pulled O'Toole aside and whispered something in his ear that immediately changed the actor's demeanor. O'Toole returned to the scene and delivered the chilling performance that made the final cut. For decades, O'Toole refused to reveal what Lean had said to him. It wasn't until 2008, near the end of his life, that O'Toole admitted Lean had whispered, "Imagine someone very close to you is watching you do this scene, someone whose opinion you deeply care about. Now, disappoint them completely." The psychological manipulation produced one of the film's most disturbing and powerful moments. Number 14. The film's famous torture scene in Deraye, where Lawrence is beaten and strongly implied to be sexually assaulted, was significantly toned down from historical accounts. T.E. Lawrence's own writings describe the incident in much more explicit terms. The scene was filmed more graphically, but censors demanded cuts, forcing David Lean to rely on shadow, suggestion, and reaction shots. What audiences didn't realize was that Peter O'Toole insisted on authentic brutality during filming. The Turkish soldiers were played by real Turkish wrestlers, and the blows landed during the scene caused actual bruising. O'Toole later said it was the most frightening day I've ever spent on a film set. The psychological toll was so intense that after filming concluded, O'Toole disappeared from set for nearly 48 hours, later found in a local bar in a state of emotional distress. The scene's power comes not from explicit content, but from the haunted look in O'Toole's eyes. Genuine trauma captured on film. Lean would later remark that the scene's restraint made it more devastating than any graphic depiction could have achieved. Number 13. The production's sheer scale was unprecedented. It wasn't just big, it was logistically impossible. David Lean constructed a complete Ottoman Turkish town in the Spanish desert with fully functional buildings. The Aqaba sequence required building a life-size replica of the coastal fortress and employing over 750 Arab extras. The production used so much lumber that it created a temporary shortage in parts of Spain. The crew included a dedicated medical team treating up to 100 cases of dysentery daily. They brought 20 refrigerated trucks into the desert just to store unexposed film, negative that would melt in the heat. When filming the Mirage sequences, equipment regularly failed as temperatures rose above 120 degrees. Camera mechanisms jammed with sand despite protective measures. Actors and crew suffered from sunstroke so frequently that IV drips became a common sight between takes. One cinematographer reportedly fainted 13 times during a single week of shooting. The film's desert sequences weren't just shot in harsh conditions, they were a genuine survival ordeal disguised as a film production. Number 12. Jose Ferrer, who played the sadistic Turkish Bey, initially refused the role due to the character's predatory nature and limited screen time. It took producer Sam Spiegel's legendary manipulation to secure him. Spiegel falsely promised Ferrer that his part would be expanded, then had his contract structured to pay him daily rather than a flat fee. Upon arrival, Ferrer discovered his scenes would take just 3 days to shoot. What audiences don't realize is that Ferrer was so furious about the deception that he threatened to walk off set. To keep him, Spiegel deliberately extended his shooting schedule to 10 days, padding Ferrer's paycheck while wasting production resources. The actor's genuine anger translated into his chilling performance. During the scene where he caresses Lawrence's injured back, O'Toole later claimed he felt genuinely violated by Ferrer's intensity. What appeared as masterful acting was partially fueled by real resentment toward the production itself. Ferrer completed his scenes and immediately left Jordan without saying goodbye to the cast or crew, still bitter about the manipulation. Number 11. The film's most dangerous sequence. The attack on the Turkish train used no special effects or miniatures. Those were real explosions, real derailments, and real stuntmen falling from a moving train. But what audiences never knew was how close the production came to genuine disaster. During one take, an explosive charge detonated prematurely, seriously injuring 2 crew members and narrowly missing Peter O'Toole. The train itself was an authentic period locomotive purchased specifically to be destroyed. The production built miles of custom railway track in the desert just for this sequence. When the massive steam engine derailed during the explosion, it wasn't supposed to tip completely. The stunt coordinator had miscalculated, creating a genuinely dangerous situation as tons of metal crashed into the sand. Several stuntmen performing as Turkish soldiers were actually trapped in the wreckage between takes. The scene required 19 days of shooting in scorching heat with explosives that became increasingly unstable in the desert conditions. Remarkably, no one was killed, though the production's medical team treated dozens for heat exhaustion, minor burns, and injuries from flying debris. Number 10. Lawrence's iconic white robes weren't historically accurate, but a cinematic invention. The real T.E. Lawrence often wore standard British military uniforms in the desert. Costume designer Phyllis Dalton created the striking white ensemble specifically to make O'Toole stand out visually against the desert landscape. The choice was aesthetic, not historical. Go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal how these costumes created unforeseen problems that nearly shut down production. The pristine white robes had to be meticulously maintained despite the dusty conditions. The costume department needed 20 identical sets that required daily cleaning. Local water shortages meant that precious drinking water was often diverted for costume maintenance. This created tension with local communities and forced the production to import water at enormous expense. The visual impact was undeniable, Lawrence appearing as a brilliant white figure against ochre desert, but it came at a tremendous logistical cost that nearly bankrupted the already over-budget production. Some crew members later estimated that maintaining Lawrence's iconic look added over $200,000 to the film's expenses. Number 9. Omar Sharif wasn't originally cast as Sheriff Ali. He was hired to play a completely different minor character. When the actor scheduled for Ali dropped out, director David Lean saw Sharif on set and impulsively recast him in the larger role, despite studio objections about elevating an Egyptian actor to such prominence. What's more shocking is that this casting change triggered genuine death threats. Sharif was Egyptian, playing a Saudi character during a time of intense pan-Arab nationalism. When Egyptian newspapers announced his involvement, he received multiple threats from radical political groups who considered his participation a betrayal of Egyptian interests. The production had to hire security for Sharif throughout filming. The studio seriously considered recasting him due to safety concerns, but Lean refused, threatening to quit if Sharif was removed. The actor later revealed that his legendary first appearance emerging from the desert mirage carried extra emotional weight because he was genuinely afraid for his life during parts of the production, creating the tense, dangerous aura that permeates his performance. Number 8. The film's most grueling sequence, the crossing of the Nifu Desert, was originally scripted as a brief transition. David Lean expanded it after experiencing the actual desert himself, insisting the audience needed to feel the brutal journey. But even hardcore fans don't realize this sequence nearly killed several crew members. Filming took place in Jordan's Wadi Rum during a record heat wave. 3 camera assistants suffered severe heat stroke and had to be evacuated by helicopter. The production's medical team administered over 200 IV saline treatments during the 16 days spent filming these scenes. When Lawrence rescues the fallen Gassim, O'Toole was actually carrying a dummy. But the actor himself collapsed from heat exhaustion immediately after Lean called cut on the final take. The sand dunes themselves presented deadly challenges with temperatures reaching 130 degrees Celsius at the surface. Equipment sank and had to be continuously excavated. Water supplies repeatedly ran out. Lean refused to use studio shots or miniatures despite pleas from Columbia Pictures executives concerned about the mounting human toll. The sequence's authenticity came at an extraordinary physical cost. Number 7. The famous Lawrence riding triumphantly on camelback footage was captured without Peter O'Toole. Not just portions, nearly all of it. O'Toole's camel riding was so awkward that David Lean relied heavily on his body double, a local Bedouin man who could handle the animals with natural grace. In wide shots of Lawrence confidently leading camel charges, you're almost never watching O'Toole. The production kept multiple doubles on standby, distinguishable only by their height and build. Close-ups of O'Toole's face were filmed separately and edited together with the riding footage. The actor's genuine struggle with camel riding became so problematic that Lean would schedule Lawrence riding scenes on days when O'Toole wasn't even on set. After one particularly brutal fall that wasn't in the script, O'Toole suffered a concussion but insisted on continuing. The disorientated actor delivered his lines so convincingly that Lean kept the unplanned accident in the final cut. The injury later required hospital treatment, but O'Toole's determination to perform, despite his limitations, perfectly mirrored Lawrence's own stubborn persistence. Number 6. The infamous quicksand scene was filmed with real danger involved. There wasn't actual quicksand, the effect was created using a concrete pit filled with a mixture of Fuller's earth and water, but the setup created genuine peril for the actors. Anthony Quinn, playing Auda Abutai, was nearly buried alive when the mechanism designed to pull Omar Sharif from the pit malfunctioned. The scene required multiple takes in suffocating conditions. Sharif was submerged up to his chest in the dense mixture, which hardened rapidly under the desert sun. Between takes, crew members had to continually remix the solution and chip away hardened sections. During one take, the safety cable beneath the surface snapped, leaving Sharif genuinely sinking. His panicked expression as Quinn struggles to free him wasn't acting. It was real fear. The rescue we see on screen was partially improvised as Quinn realized Sharif was in actual danger. Lean, notorious for demanding multiple takes regardless of conditions, recognized the authentic terror in their performances and used the footage where real danger had unintentionally created cinematic truth. Number 5. The iconic Lawrence of Arabia theme wasn't originally composed for the film at all. Composer Maurice Jarre had created a completely different main theme that David Lean rejected just weeks before the premiere. In a panic, Jarre locked himself in a hotel room for 3 days straight, emerging sleep-deprived but with the now famous overture. The recording sessions were equally chaotic. The London Philharmonic had just 12 days to record the entire score, a nearly impossible time frame for such complex music. Musicians were sight-reading parts during the actual recording sessions, with Jarre making frantic corrections between takes. The percussion section was doubled in size to create the distinctive desert rhythms, requiring specialized equipment to be rushed in from 5 countries. During the final mixing, Lean demanded such specific adjustments that Jarre eventually collapsed from exhaustion. A doctor was called to administer stimulants so he could complete the work. The score that went on to win an Academy Award and become one of cinema's most recognizable themes was literally created under medical supervision to prevent the composer's physical collapse. Number 4. Peter O'Toole and Omar Sharif's on-screen chemistry wasn't just good acting. They engaged in marathon drinking sessions throughout production that sometimes lasted until filming began the next morning. Their camaraderie was genuine, but it created serious problems for the production. Director David Lean became so frustrated with their behavior that he attempted to separate them by scheduling their scenes on alternate days. This backfired when they synchronized their drinking regardless of shooting schedules. During one particularly intense sequence, O'Toole was so hungover that he vomited between takes while delivering his lines. Rather than halting production, the pragmatic Lean simply positioned buckets just off camera. The pair's drinking became so legendary that local officials in Jordan briefly considered banning the production from purchasing alcohol. Producer Sam Spiegel ultimately assigned staff to monitor the actors' alcohol consumption and enforce curfews, measures that were regularly evaded. Sharif later admitted that some of their most emotionally raw scenes were performed through the clarity that comes from severe dehydration after a night of indulgence. Number 3. The film's infamous Blue Eyes controversy nearly derailed production before it began. T.E. Lawrence was known for his striking blue eyes, described in historical accounts as his most memorable feature. Peter O'Toole naturally possessed the perfect ice blue eyes for the role, but early color tests created an unexpected problem. They appeared unnaturally vivid on Technicolor film, almost glowing against a desert backdrop. Studio executives demanded O'Toole wear brown contact lenses to tone down his appearance. This sparked a fierce 3-week standoff with David Lean, who insisted the eyes were essential to capturing Lawrence's penetrating charisma. When O'Toole tried the lenses during a test shoot, he suffered a severe allergic reaction that temporarily blinded him for 2 days. The production halted while medical specialists were flown in from London. The compromise. Solution was bizarre but effective. Cinematographer Freddie Young developed a custom filter that slightly dulled blue tones only when photographing close-ups of O'Toole's face. This technical innovation, created specifically for Lawrence of Arabia, later became standard equipment in Hollywood productions and is still used in modern filmmaking. Number 2. The famous Aqaba battle sequence employed over 750 Bedouin extras and 156 camels. But what audiences don't realize is that the massive cavalry charge was a logistical nightmare that nearly ended in tragedy. The extras weren't professional actors, but actual Bedouin tribesmen, many of whom had never seen a camera before and didn't understand the concept of stage combat. When Lean ordered the charge to begin, the situation rapidly spiraled out of control. What was supposed to be choreographed became a genuine stampede. 2 cameramen were trampled and seriously injured when they couldn't clear the path quickly enough. The charging Bedouin, carried away with enthusiasm, began firing their rifles loaded with blanks directly at the camera crews. Several authentic cavalry sabers were unsheathed in the excitement. Lean, instead of halting the chaos, ordered his operators to keep filming. The sequence's raw power comes from genuine danger. Those aren't actors pretending to run for their lives, but actual crew members fleeing from hundreds of charging men and animals. The take that appears in the final film was the only complete run they attempted. Lean deemed it too dangerous to risk a second attempt. Number 1. The most physically punishing scene for Peter O'Toole wasn't a battle sequence or camel ride, but the moment where Lawrence triumphantly stands atop a captured Turkish train. The metal roof had been baking in the desert sun for hours, reaching temperatures estimated above 160 degrees Celsius. O'Toole's feet were severely burned through his boots within seconds of climbing up. Crew members later revealed they could smell burning leather as the actor delivered his lines. When O'Toole finally jumped down, portions of his boot soles remained fused to the metal roof. He required medical treatment for second-degree burns but refused to delay production. The next day's shooting had to be reconfigured to allow him to remain seated. In a cruel irony, when the film was first screened for executives, they complained the scene looked too theatrical and suggested cutting it entirely. Lean fought successfully to keep the sequence, arguing that Lawrence's pain was central to understanding the character. The triumphant moment that caused O'Toole genuine physical suffering remained in the film, though few viewers realize they're watching an actor in the midst of actual trauma. Bonus fact: the film's most iconic scene, the sweeping desert vista where Lawrence extinguishes the match cut to the rising sun, contained a cinematic secret that remained hidden for decades. The breathtaking landscape wasn't filmed in the Middle East at all, but in a small area of southern Spain. More shocking still, the majestic sunrise was actually a sunset, filmed backward and flipped horizontally in post-production. The sequence was created last, after principal photography wrapped, when Lean realized he needed a more perfect transition. The original Jordan footage wasn't dramatic enough. Cinematographer Freddie Young suggested the Spanish location and the technical trick to create the perfect golden light. They filmed the sun setting, then reversed the footage so it appeared to rise. This bit of cinematic sleight of hand was kept secret for over 50 years until restoration experts discovered the truth while remastering the original negative. The most celebrated match cut in film history, taught in film schools worldwide as perfect visual storytelling, was actually one of cinema's greatest technical deceptions. The scene that defined Lawrence of Arabia wasn't filmed in Arabia at all. Lawrence of Arabia wasn't just a film that won 7 Academy Awards. It was a production that permanently altered its participants and changed how epics would be made forever. Its grand scale and uncompromising vision came at tremendous human cost: physical injuries, psychological trauma, and even near-death experiences. What audiences witnessed as seamless storytelling was actually the product of near-impossible conditions and a director who refused to accept anything less than perfection. The next time you watch Lawrence's journey across the shimmering desert, remember that the suffering you see on screen wasn't always acting. It was a documentation of a production that pushed everyone involved to their absolute limits in pursuit of cinematic immortality. If you've enjoyed these revelations about one of cinema's greatest achievements, hit subscribe for more hidden Hollywood histories. After all, as Lawrence himself might say, nothing about this extraordinary film was written in stone, except perhaps its permanent place in movie history.